Brittney Griner stood on the podium in Paris in 2024 with a gold medal around her neck. The American flag was raised, the national anthem played, and she was proudly wearing the Team USA jersey. In that moment, she was part of a championship roster celebrating Olympic glory. But fast forward to today, and something strange has happened. When the roster for the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup was quietly revealed, Griner's name was nowhere to be found. No press conference, no official explanation, just silence. One of the most recognizable veterans in women's basketball was suddenly missing from the list. So what changed between Paris and Puerto Rico? Because what's being discussed right now goes far beyond a simple roster decision. Rumors have been spreading everywhere, some even suggesting talk about DNA testing, while others point to the highly controversial moment involving a physical and racially charged incident surrounding Caitlin Clark, who many now see as the new face of Team USA. These are serious allegations. This isn't just about basketball anymore, and it's certainly not a routine lineup adjustment. If the reports are true, it could explain why such a dramatic move was made behind the scenes. And if they're not, the silence from officials is only making the speculation grow louder. One thing is clear, something significant happened, and the public still hasn't been given the full story. Now the big question is whether more details will eventually come to light, or if this situation will remain one of the most controversial and mysterious decisions in recent Team USA history. And speaking of the future of the team, are you excited to see Caitlin Clark back on the court representing Team USA? And what do you think about Brittney Griner being left off the roster? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below.
And it was just, I think I'm still trying to get through that part.
Still to this day?
I try to give myself grace. Everybody says give yourself grace. It's so hard for me to do that. At the end of the day, it's my fault, and I let everybody down.
Imagine this for a moment. You're Brittney Griner. You've just helped Team USA capture another Olympic gold medal in Paris 2024. You stood on that podium listening to the national anthem as the American flag rose above the arena. You were part of a roster many considered one of the most powerful teams ever assembled in women's basketball. Now jump ahead 2 years. The 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying roster is finally released, and your name is nowhere to be found. No injury announcement, no retirement message, no public statement explaining the decision, just silence. And suddenly you're not part of the picture anymore. The truth is, the 2024 Olympic roster in Paris was carefully built around veteran leadership. Players like Diana Taurasi, Brittney Griner, Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, and Alyssa Thomas brought years of experience representing Team USA on the international stage. These were athletes who had already been through the pressure of the biggest moments in global basketball. And that wasn't by accident. The average age of that roster was over 30, a clear signal that USA Basketball wanted proven veterans who could deliver immediate results. The goal wasn't long-term development, it was winning right now, and that strategy paid off. Team USA dominated the tournament and returned home with another Olympic gold medal. Griner played her role in that success. She was part of the regular rotation, logging meaningful minutes during important stretches of the games. She contributed on the court, supported her teammates, and ultimately stood on that podium with the rest of the team as a champion. At that moment, she was undeniably part of the winning formula, which makes what happened next even more surprising.
You said that you felt that you let down yourself, your family, your teams. So how did you work through that, what you called this guilt that you were feeling?
I don't think I really gotten through all the way that I didn't let down, everybody in my family. And
So when the 2026 qualifying roster was finally revealed and people started reading through the names, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, Angel Reese, it didn't just look like a normal roster update. It felt like an entirely new era. The vibe of the team looked different. The age group had shifted. The energy surrounding the roster had clearly changed. It signaled that USA Basketball might be heading in a completely new direction. And noticeably absent from that picture was Brittney Griner. Now here's where things become even more intriguing. intriguing. Another major star, Brianna Stewart, also isn't playing in the qualifying games in Puerto Rico. At first glance, that might make you assume USA Basketball is simply moving away from the Paris veterans altogether, but that's not actually the case. Stewart's situation was explained publicly. It was made clear that she would still be attending training camp, and the reason for her absence from the qualifying games was communicated openly. There was context, there was transparency. With Griner, however, there was none of that. USA Basketball offered no statement, no clarification, and no explanation. Her name simply wasn't on the list, and that silence is incredibly telling. Organizations usually don't stay quiet about roster decisions without a reason. When a player who just helped win an Olympic gold medal is suddenly left off a roster and there's zero public explanation, that's rarely an accident. It's a deliberate choice. Sometimes silence says more than a press release ever could. And naturally, once people noticed that silence, the speculation began almost immediately. Fans started asking questions, and those questions quickly grew louder. The timing raised eyebrows because it came during a period when other conversations had already been brewing for months. And none of those conversations were about Griner's performance on the court, her post play, her rebounding, or her scoring. The discussion had shifted away from basketball entirely. It was about everything happening around the game. That's what makes the gap between Paris and Puerto Rico so fascinating. This doesn't look like a simple youth movement where the entire roster was reset. USA Basketball didn't wipe the slate clean. Instead, they selectively kept certain players and quietly moved on from others. And look closely at the names leading this new group. Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese aren't just talented young athletes. Right now, they're some of the most visible, most talked about, and most marketable figures in women's basketball. USA Basketball understands exactly how powerful that combination is, which means Griner's absence from this roster isn't some minor detail buried in the lineup. It feels more like a clear message about where the program is heading and which players they want representing that future. What makes the situation even more puzzling is how it happened immediately after a gold medal run, and still no public explanation was offered. If the decision were purely about performance, the explanation would have been simple. Something like, we're shifting toward a younger, more athletic roster. That would have been an easy statement to release, but they didn't even say that. And when an organization avoids giving the obvious explanation, it usually means the real reason behind the decision is something far more complicated.
But we have heard nothing from the WNBA, absolutely nothing.
Brittney Griner elbowing Caitlin Clark in a crazy way and then calling her a trash white girl.
And Brittney Griner has not commented, which I find significant. I've watched that video countless times, and it sure looks like Brittney Griner says, fucking white girl.
The WNBA should investigate Brittney Griner's seemingly uttering profanities about white girls.
There's another conversation that has been gaining momentum lately, and it's becoming impossible to ignore. Some critics have been calling for the WNBA to look into reports that Brittney Griner allegedly directed profane remarks toward white female players. The topic has sparked heated debate online, with people demanding answers and accountability. But that's only part of the controversy. There's another claim circulating that has grown even louder in recent months, and some believe it could be tied to why USA Basketball may have felt pressure when making certain roster decisions. For a while now, rumors about possible DNA testing involving Brittney Griner have been floating around different corners of the internet. After the Paris Olympics, those whispers started spreading even faster. The central allegation being discussed is that questions related to biological eligibility and gender verification may have been raised in international basketball circles. And it's important to understand a key detail here. These discussions, according to the speculation, were not taking place within the WNBA itself, but rather within the international sports system, where governing bodies sometimes follow different eligibility policies and verification procedures. That distinction matters a lot because international competitions operate under a different set of regulations than domestic leagues. Still, at this point, much of what's being discussed publicly remains speculation. Yet the fact that these rumors continue to circulate shows just how intense the scrutiny around the situation has become.
Brittney Griner is, in fact, a man.
FIBA doesn't follow the exact same policies as the WNBA. The international governing body operates under its own set of regulations when it comes to testosterone limits and biological eligibility standards, rules that the domestic league simply does not enforce in the same way. Because of that, that difference, a player who competes freely in the WNBA without facing any concerns could arrive at a FIBA tournament and suddenly encounter an entirely different evaluation process. The framework is different, the guidelines are different, and the level of scrutiny can be very different as well. In other words, what qualifies without issue in a domestic league environment may still trigger additional review once the stage shifts to international competition, where the rulebook isn't exactly the same.
Brittney, let me see something real quick. Brick, thank you. Get the hell out of here, yo. Jab stepping, just a brick. Swing and a miss.
Oh!
Yo, I ain't gonna fake it right now.
That this person is not a female. Firstly, because this was actually posted to Brittney's personal Instagram.
Some of the rumors circulating online, particularly in fan forums and media discussions, focus on Brittney Griner, referencing her past top surgery and raising questions about possible biological testing. To be clear, none of these claims have been officially confirmed. There hasn't been any verified documentation released that proves these allegations. However, what's significant isn't necessarily the proof. It's the persistence of the conversation. These rumors have spread widely enough and for long enough that they've moved beyond simple internet speculation. These rumors have spread widely enough and for long enough that they've moved beyond simple internet speculation. They've started appearing in broader discussions about Griner's potential future in international competition, and once a narrative reaches that level, it enters a completely different territory. At that point, it's no longer just background noise on social media. It becomes something organizations may feel obligated to monitor or address, whether they actually want to engage with it or not.
That this person is not a female. Firstly, because this was actually posted to Brittney's personal Instagram. And when it comes to Instagram, they use a combination of like AI detection and plus manual surveyors, but specifically the AI detection to make sure that no explicit content ends up on the platform. So clearly whatever AI detection system was used when Brittney posted this and it stayed up for 106 weeks was not like, oh, this is a bare female chest, we have to take this down. It obviously assumed that Brittney was male.
And this is where the situation becomes even more complicated. USA Basketball doesn't necessarily have to believe every rumor that's circulating in order to react to it. At the highest level of international sports, decisions are often about risk management, not personal opinions. What organizations have to consider is the possibility, however small, that a player on their World Cup roster could suddenly become the center of a global eligibility controversy. From there, leadership has to ask a difficult question. Is that a risk the program is willing to carry onto the international stage? Now imagine what that situation might actually look like. You're competing in a FIBA tournament with fans, media outlets, and national teams from around the world watching every move. Then suddenly, one of your players becomes the subject of an eligibility investigation or public dispute. At that point, the issue stops being about just one athlete. It instantly becomes a headline tied to the entire Team USA program. The focus shifts away from the games, away from the team's performance, and away from everything the organization is trying to build. Instead of talking about wins, championships, and the future of the sport, the conversation becomes dominated by controversy, and stories like that rarely disappear overnight. Once that kind of narrative reaches the global stage, it tends to follow the team and the program for a long time.
Brittney is a weird case. He's a man, yes, that much is obvious, but not in the way that you think. He isn't trans. He's a straight cis male who was raised as a girl and given a girl's name by his parents. His mother is the insane one. She forced him to live as a female right up through high school, filled out all of his paperwork, including BC as female, and kept the charade.
When you look at the situation strictly from a risk management perspective, it begins to make more sense how the decision may have been viewed internally. Reports suggest that the rumors surrounding possible DNA or eligibility testing created an entirely separate concern for USA Basketball to evaluate. In other words, there were potentially two different issues being considered at the same time. One lane involved the conduct-related controversies that had already been circulating publicly. The other lane focused on the eligibility questions tied to international competition. Different issues, but both pointing toward the same difficult decision. From a strategic standpoint, whether those rumors are ultimately proven true or not almost becomes secondary. What matters more is the uncertainty they create. According to the speculation surrounding the situation, USA Basketball may not have been willing to enter the Puerto Rico qualifiers carrying that kind of unanswered question. And beyond that, the concern could extend to the entire World Cup tournament, where global attention would only magnify any controversy. Even the possibility of an eligibility dispute could become a distraction. At that point, the organization would have to weigh two things: the value a player brings on the court versus the potential complications off it. And in that kind of calculation, the risk, no matter how small, may have ultimately outweighed what Brittney Griner could contribute on the floor at this stage of her career.
Brittney Griner comes out and says, I am so sick and tired of the NBA, WNBA. It used to be a peaceful, small little thing. Now there's crowds screaming, hollering. This is disruptive. It's not allowing us to play the game. Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there watching on purpose. It's very disruptive.
It may sound like a harsh way to look at things, but decisions at this level are often made with that kind of cold, strategic logic. And it could also explain why USA Basketball chose to remain completely silent about the situation. After all, an organization can't exactly step in front of cameras and say, we left a player off the roster because of eligibility rumors. That kind of statement would immediately create even more controversy. So instead, the simpler route is silence. Release the roster, offer no detailed explanation, let the public draw its own conclusions. Once that decision is made and the potential risk is removed from the equation, something else happens too. New opportunities open up on the roster, and what fills those spots begins to look very different from the previous era. A younger core, a different identity, a new face leading the spotlight, someone who doesn't arrive with ongoing controversy attached, someone who simply brings attention, excitement, and cameras wherever she plays. But here's where the story takes another turn. When people within women's basketball circles talk about the moment things may have shifted between USA Basketball and Brittney Griner, they often point to a very specific incident. And it didn't happen during the Olympics or at an international event. It happened during a regular season Indiana Fever game.
Brittney Griner appeared to call Caitlin Clark trash and effing white girl.
At one point during the game, Brittney Griner and Caitlin Clark found themselves matched up in close proximity on the court. But according to reports that quickly circulated through fan communities and basketball circles, what happened next wasn't about a hard foul or a physical collision. The controversy was about something verbal. Allegations began spreading that Griner directed a remark toward Clark, reportedly calling her a trash white girl. This wasn't described as the usual back and forth trash talk players exchange during intense moments. Instead, many people interpreted it as something far more personal and racially charged. And the claim gained traction because fans believed the moment was caught on camera, which only fueled the discussion online. If you pause and think about the situation for a moment, the issue people were reacting to wasn't physical contact. No shove, no elbow, no heated scramble for the ball. It was about words. And words carry weight, especially in a moment like that. Many observers pointed out that the remark, as it was being described, wasn't simply an insult during competition. It was perceived as a racially pointed comment directed at Caitlin Clark, who right now is arguably the most watched and talked about player in women's basketball.
Griner, who I can't stand, sad that she's a Baylor grad.
Yeah,
she called her a trash expletive white girl. That was the lip reading. Yes, trash white girl. Trash. Blanking white girl.
So how did the WNBA respond? Nothing. No fine, no suspension, no official statement, complete silence. And that silence quickly became its own story, because everyone watching knew exactly how it would have played out if the roles were reversed. If Caitlin Clark had been the one to call a teammate a trash black girl, there's no scenario in which that story wouldn't have exploded. It would have dominated headlines, sparked 24-hour coverage, prompted official statements, and led to immediate consequences. That would have been a career-defining moment, but in this case, when the alleged remark came from the other side, the league said nothing. Clark didn't retaliate. She got up and kept playing, just as she always had, whether it was someone elbowing her, fouling her hard, or testing her during her rookie season. Her approach all year long was the same: keep moving, keep competing, don't let anything break you. And that consistency didn't just reflect on her, it highlighted everyone around her. Her calm, composed response put a spotlight on the other players' actions, making their behavior far more visible rather than masking it. In other words, Clark's reaction showed the contrast loud and clear, and that contrast spoke volumes about accountability, or the lack of it, in the league.
The noise that's
I
coming.
don't appreciate the new fans that sit there and yell racial slurs at myself, my teammates, and the people that I play against, because Yeah, those might be opponents, but those are friends too. You know, they don't deserve that. So I don't appreciate the new fans. I think it's okay to do that.
Here's the catch. Brittney Griner herself has publicly spoken out against racial slurs being shouted at players. She made it clear that she doesn't tolerate that kind of language. So when the report surfaced alleging she used a similar remark toward Caitlin Clark on the court, it added an entirely new layer to the story. Suddenly you're looking at someone who had spoken against that exact behavior, now being accused of engaging in it themselves. And that contradiction is what made the situation even more controversial.
The league would not be okay with a white player saying effing black girl.
Once these allegations started spreading, the frustration wasn't just coming from fans online. At higher levels, the question was simple. How does this look on the international stage? Because FIBA isn't the WNBA. A World Cup isn't just another Tuesday night regular season matchup. Every game is being watched by the world, and every action by the players wearing the Team USA jersey is being scrutinized and judged globally. You can handle a domestic controversy. The WNBA has done it plenty of times. But stepping into a World Cup with that kind of story attached to one of your players, that doesn't stay under the radar. Internationally, it doesn't work that way. The spotlight is unavoidable, and the implications are immediate.
Let's see an investigation into reverse racism that's going on across the league also. Griner referring quite clearly, I believe, to Caitlin Clark and a white referee as, quote, trash ass white girls.
According to reports from Inside USA Basketball, the conversation around conduct played a major role in their decision-making. The alleged racial remark toward Caitlin Clark wasn't treated as a fleeting headline. Instead, it reportedly became one of the documented reasons cited internally to justify leaving Brittney Griner off the roster. It provided a conduct-based rationale, completely separate from on-court performance, age, or team strategy. It was about character, about the type of player you want representing your program at the international level. The WNBA may not have acted on it, but USA Basketball apparently did, and they made the decision without issuing a single public statement, which, given all the other factors swirling behind the scenes at the time, likely seemed like the safest course to them.
I love watching her score and just everything about her.
They went the extra mile just to watch her play here.
This is great news for women's basketball. Period.
That's nice.
And she was shooting the shit out of it.
Of course she was.
Right, so she was shooting the shit out of it. And
she's the face of the league.
Agreed.
She's the face of the league. Agreed.
Just have nothing but great things to say about who she is as a person. She's so welcoming and so warm as an individual that she can have a conversation with anybody. She's cut from the same cloth as me in that regard. You know what? Us Midwesterners, we tend to just, accept everybody with open arms. She was so kind to my family and everyone in the suite when she came to KC. So huge fans of Caitlin Clark.
It is a mad situation just all around when it comes to Caitlin Clark.
Now, here's the part that really shapes the story going forward. Caitlin Clark was completely left off the Paris Olympic roster, and fans reacted immediately. Outrage was practically instant. Looking back, that decision was nearly impossible to defend. At the time, Clark was already the most watched player in women's basketball, commanding attention with every game. Fast forward 2 years, and the story has completely flipped. She's not just on the 2026 roster. Kara Lawson and USA Basketball built the entire team around her, putting Clark at the very center of the program's future.
Just remind myself who I am and what I've been, and I didn't lose that, so just continue to do it.
The fact that Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese are all making their senior national team debuts simultaneously isn't a coincidence. USA Basketball doesn't operate by accident at this level. This is a deliberate statement. These are the faces of this program for the next decade. These are the players we're building around. These are the athletes we want the world to focus on when they watch Team USA. All three wearing the same jersey at the same time for the first time. That's a message, loud and clear. But here's where it gets even more compelling. Clark isn't stepping onto the Puerto Rico court riding high on momentum. Last WNBA season, she played just 13 games due to a groin strain and a bone bruise in her left ankle. It was a physically tough year that kept her off the floor for nearly 8 months. So her debut in Puerto Rico isn't just about being on the roster. It's about proving she's back at the same elite level in front of a global audience, after the longest stretch of her career without meaningful competitive basketball. It's not just a return, it's a statement.
I think that was probably almost, played with my mind even more than like knowing I was going to be out for a set period of time. I was like always trying to come back, and then I'd get hurt in another way. And then, finally, obviously shutting it down, I've had a good, 6 months or maybe more. And I think the first USA basketball camp was a great checkpoint for me, and I felt really great. Honestly, I was impressed with like how with it I felt. Like sometimes I felt like it maybe would take me a day or two to really get my first step back, but I felt like myself out there. So just relying on that.
She even admitted it herself. It'll probably take me a little time to shake off some rust, a little nervous, which I usually don't get. She explained it was likely because she hadn't played competitive basketball in a while. That's notable because Caitlin Clark isn't the type of player who talks about nerves. The fact that she acknowledged it shows just how significant this moment is, even for someone of her caliber. But here's the thing, pressure is exactly where Clark thrives. She didn't falter during March Madness, when the whole country was watching her every move. She didn't shrink during her WNBA rookie season, even as players fouled her hard on nearly every possession and the league often didn't call it. Every time the stakes got higher, she raised her game even more. Puerto Rico, it's simply the next stage in that pattern. Another big moment, another opportunity for Clark to show why she excels when the spotlight is brightest.
It's definitely been a while since I played a game. And obviously I played in the camp we had in December, and then, doing everything I can to simulate as much live play in training and pickup and things like that, but nothing will quite emulate this type of environment. So I think it'll probably take me a second to knock a little bit of the rust off. I'll probably be a little bit nervous, which I usually don't get nervous, but that probably just will come from, I haven't really played basketball in a while. So I'm sure like after the first minute of running around on the court.
And the roster surrounding her makes this genuinely thrilling, something Team USA hasn't felt in quite some time. Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese are three players who don't just bring talent, they bring massive audiences wherever they go. Coach Kara Lawson has said it outright. These athletes carry entire fan communities with them, and those fans follow every step of their journey. Even more importantly, they actually want to play together. There's no friction, no awkward dynamics. The energy is real. They're excited, and it shows. Lawson is steering this program all the way through the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. So Puerto Rico isn't just a one-off test. This is the foundation of the team. This is the blueprint for what Team USA will look like over the next several years. And it all starts now. Another key point, the international game might actually suit Clark even better than the WNBA. There's more space on the court, defensive rules are different, and the pace aligns perfectly with her shooting range and court vision. In many ways, her skills could be even more dangerous on the global stage than they appear domestically. This isn't just a roster, it's a statement.
More than anything, just really excited. I know how much work and how much time I've put in to make sure my body's as healthy as it can be, and to get back not only to a point where I feel like I'm myself, but I feel like I'm even better than, where I was at the beginning of last season. And I started off the season really well before I was hurt and tried to play through being hurt. So more than anything, just excited to be out there, be surrounded by a lot of really good players, and do whatever I can to help us win.
Caitlin Clark has been dreaming about wearing the senior national team jersey since she was a teenager. The World Cup and the 2028 Olympics have been goals she's had circled for years. Puerto Rico is the first step on that journey, and USA Basketball has now handed her the keys to the program. None of this happened because Clark lobbied for it. She didn't campaign or complain when she was left off the Paris Olympic roster. She simply kept performing, kept showing up, and kept playing at the highest level whenever it mattered most. USA Basketball took notice of that consistency and made their decision, so pay attention in Puerto Rico. Watch Clark, Buchers, and Reese pull on that jersey together for the first time. Watch what this team looks like when the right players are leading the floor. Right now, women's basketball doesn't get any bigger than this. Are you excited to see Caitlin Clark back in action? Do you think Brittney Griner deserved to be left off the roster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Click the video on screen, and we'll see you in the next one.